Hello, thanks for joining me. I have recently been putting together plans for a couple of longer tours this summer, which I'm very excited about, and I was going through some of my old material and notes, and I found a tip sheet that I used to hand out to my clients, to my customers, when I guided long distance tours. Those of you who know me will know that I used to guide some very long distance tours. For example, ride up through Scandinavia to Nordkap, the top of Europe, coast to coast across the USA, and a ride from Alaska down to California. So on those rides we used to do some very long days in the saddle, and so these are some tips that I used to give out to my clients to try and help them stay comfortable and enjoy the ride. So I'm going to share it with you now. I'll also write them up as tip sheets, which I will put on my Buy Me a Coffee account for you to download for free. I will put that link at the end of the video. The only reason I use the Buy Me a Coffee account is it's an easy way to share documents. You don't have to buy me a coffee if you don't want to. Okay, so without further ado, here we go. These are 8 tips for staying comfortable on a long distance tour. So tip number 1, stay hydrated. It is important to drink plenty every time you stop. Carry a bottle of water or something like that with you on the bike. Obviously that means you need to have plenty of loo stops as well if you're drinking. I actually quite often wear a hydration pack when I'm touring, particularly when I'm off-road riding, trail riding, because you tend to get a lot hotter doing that, and that allows you to then just sip as you're riding along. The advantage of the hydration pack is you can just keep sipping. You don't have to stop. But as you'll see from some of my later tips, I think it's a good idea to stop quite frequently anyway. So, just carry a bottle of something on the bike with you so that when you do stop and have a break, you could just have a little sip and keep yourself well hydrated. So important for your concentration, if nothing else. Stops you having accidents, keeps your concentration up. Okay, that's tip number 1. So tip number 2 is wear earplugs. The noise, as you can probably hear on this recording, it's the wind noise. It's very tiring. You might think it's okay and it's not troubling you, but particularly when you're having long stretches and you're on motorways, highways, long stretches at high speed, it can really significantly increase your level of fatigue. So wearing earplugs is just so much more comfortable. Makes you tire less, makes you less fatigued. At the end of the day, you're not going to be worn out. And of course, it's important not to damage your hearing as well. You can develop bad tinnitus from that constant wind noise. Tip number 3. It is much better to eat frequent small snacks when you're riding, when you've got a long day in the saddle, than it is to stop and have a big meal. So snack throughout the day when you stop. That has a number of benefits. One is it keeps your blood sugar levels up, which prevents fatigue, also keeps your concentration up, stops you feeling so tired. But also, and you may well have experienced this, if you stop and have a big meal, particularly at lunchtime, then you start to feel drowsy in the afternoon and your concentration levels really drop. That can be really dangerous. So I always just try and carry a lot of light snacks with me. So throughout the day, I just have little light snacks, and then at the end of the day, when I finish riding, then I will have a proper meal. Tip number 4 is take frequent short breaks throughout the day when you're riding. And it doesn't have to be a long break. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Sometimes it's just you see somewhere great to take a picture, so you stop the bike, jump off the bike, take a quick photograph, pack your camera away, get back on the ride and carry on. It makes such a big difference to get off the bike, move around a little bit. You get the blood flowing in your legs, in your backside. It's amazing how if you take frequent, very short breaks, how you can stay comfortable for a lot longer. literally 2 or 3 minutes, 5 minutes off the bike can make your backside a lot more comfortable if you are starting to get uncomfortable on the saddle. And again, it's about breaking the just being on the bike helps with your concentration, helps with fatigue as well. So concentration, fatigue, and comfort are all much better if you stop and take regular breaks. So I would say at least once an hour, pull over, have a little sip, have a little nibble on something if you've got snacks with you, take photographs, and then jump on your bike and carry on. Tip number 5 is keep your temperature good by moderating your clothing. I'm a big advocate of layering up, wearing layers that you can strip off or add to. Don't let yourself get too hot and don't let yourself get too cold. When you're touring, when you're long distance touring, you can end up with real extremes of temperatures. So for example, sometimes when I'm touring in Scandinavia, it can be 30 odd degrees and then it can drop down to below freezing when you get up into the mountains. Same, in the Rocky Mountains. I've had the experience the same in Utah, riding through the Rockies. So it's really helpful to have a jacket with air vents. So if it gets hot, you can open up the air vents, get some air flowing around you, get cooler, but you still got the protection of the jacket. But equally, you need to have extra warm layers you can put on if it gets colder. And one thing I really recommend is use your waterproofs as an extra windproof and insulating layer if you get cold. So even if I'm wearing a Gore-Tex jacket, I tend to always carry extra set of waterproofs to put over the top of them. That means then if it's getting cold, I can put them on. That traps another layer of air in there and just keeps you warmer, and it can make all the difference. So don't let yourself get too hot, don't let yourself get too cold. Moderate your temperature. Okay, tip number 6, and this is a big one, this is a big deal. Make sure you have a comfortable saddle on your bike. Anybody who's done long distance touring will understand what I'm talking about. If you are not confident that you're going to be comfortable in your saddle for several consecutive long days of riding, then you need to do something about it. And I would suggest you need to consider buying an aftermarket seat or a seat pad, or getting a gel insert in your existing seat. Just get past this guy. Or something to make your saddle more comfortable. You maybe see on some of my other videos when I'm riding this bike, I'm on my Triumph Scrambler 1200, sometimes I put a sheepskin on the saddle of this, and that just gives that extra little bit of comfort. But if you are normally only used to going out for on your bike for an hour or two on short rides locally, there's a huge difference between that and spending 6 to 8 hours in the saddle every day for 14 days or more. It's a huge difference, and it can be miserable if you're uncomfortable. Now, I've already talked about the importance of taking frequent breaks, getting off your bike, stretching your legs, and how that can help enormously. But even then, you need everything on your side to keep yourself comfortable. Not only does an uncomfortable saddle make your journey a misery, but it can also distract you from your riding and increase your fatigue. So it is very, very important. Get a comfortable saddle. And I would even say, a lot of people say to me, oh, but I don't want to spoil the lines of my bike. Keep your original saddle, but buy another one just for touring. Then put your original saddle back on for looks, for local. It is so very important. Okay, tip number 7. Prepare your bike before you set off on a long trip. Now, this may seem so obvious, but believe me, I have seen so many people set off on long trips so ill prepared. There's the obvious stuff like service your bike before you go. Check whether you need to change the chain and sprockets or the brake pads or anything else. Do you need new tyres before you set off? That's all basic stuff, but other things are setting setting your bike up so that it's suitable for spending a lot of time in the saddle. So, do you need to make some adaptations to make your bike more comfortable? For example, changing your handlebar risers just to change your riding positions slightly, or maybe fitting a drink holder or something like that on the bike so you can easily carry some drinks at ready place, or as I've already mentioned, fitting a custom touring seat so that your bike is more comfortable specifically for touring. You need to make sure that you get all of these things sorted out, and any problems, niggles with your bike before you set off. So for example, if you've got a problem with your battery and you think your battery's a little bit dodgy, problem starting the bike, then get that sorted, get a new battery before you set off, because the last thing you want is to have your trip ruined by niggly little things which you could have easily sorted out before the trip and which you're then going to have to sort out during the trip, and that's going to be a lot more hassle and eat into the enjoyment of your trip. So make sure your bike is prepared. Seems obvious, but I've seen so many times when people have not done that. Alright guys. And finally, tip number 8, and I've spoken about this in separate videos, but do not take too much luggage with you. Travel as light as you can. Too much luggage will make your bike heavy and difficult to handle. An overloaded bike is more tiring to ride, it's more difficult to manoeuvre, and then you've just got more luggage to unpack and repack and fit on your bike. It just becomes a liability and a burden. So, travel as lightly as you can. One thing which I really recommend to people who are going on a long trip, when I say a long trip, you're going for more than a week, possibly 2-3 weeks or longer, and you've maybe not been on such a trip before, or not for a long time, do a shakedown ride. Do just a 1 or 2 night ride, just to check that you've got all the gear you need and what gear you don't need that you can leave behind. Okay, so I hope you found that useful. Just a few tips for staying comfortable on longer tours. Nothing radical there. I think it's all fairly self-evident, but sometimes we just need reminding of these things. But have I missed anything important? If you feel from your own experience that there's something else that's extremely important, please do share it in the comments below. For people to benefit from, and for me to benefit from as well, perhaps. And as I said earlier, I will put a tip sheet available for free on my Buy Me a Coffee account, which I'll put the link to below. Thanks a lot for watching. See you again soon. Ride safe. Bye.